But also responsibility can pull people out of the slumber.
Yes.
Reminding people you are responsible for your life and you are worth something.
Absolutely.
And you are important and the world needs you. So let's go.
You are listening to the Under the Rug podcast with Nalini Tranquim.
Well, hello. Welcome to Under the Rug. I am Nalini Tranquim, and a matter that has been, how do I put it, challenging me of late has been the ability to differentiate between rest and idleness. I don't know, for some reason, I've got it in my mind that when I am not actively doing something that's productive, I am being lazy. And so I was having a chinwag with a girlfriend of mine this past week and was talking on this topic. And as we were delving into this deeper, we realized that this is actually something we both battle with. And my goodness, why don't we bring this issue to the forefront on the Under the Rug podcast? So I am super excited because I have got her here with me today, but I don't want to do any injustice to this incredible woman. So I am going to read her biography to introduce her to you, and then we're going to delve straight in. Okay, so here we go. Danielle McAlpine Johnson, who happens to be a very dear friend of mine, is an award-winning writer, director, producer, devoted to creating documentary, film, and television as a catalyst for change in the social justice landscape. Deeply passionate about highlighting issues of injustice and sharing stories of the human heart, Danielle has an innate ability to connect with people, to draw out the unique heartbeat of every story. Along with her husband, singer-songwriter Chico Johnson, Danielle is the co-founder of Cheeky Mac Productions, with documentaries currently broadcasting on Network 10 Australia, ACC TV, Foxtel, Ozflix, New Faith Network Netherlands, Virgin In-Flight Entertainment, and OSN Middle East and North Africa. A proud mama of 4 beautiful children, Danielle continues in the pursuit of truth and revelation through the arts, whilst enjoying and juggling family life. Danielle McAlpine Johnson, welcome to Under the Rug.
Hello, beautiful woman. Such an honour to be with you today, as it always is.
Oh my gosh, I'm so excited. First and foremost, how are your beautiful children and your fabulous hubby?
They're amazing, thank you. With the new addition, they're doting over little Lily Grace, who was born only 4 weeks ago. So it's a very new season in our house.
And look at you. I mean, you look like you've just walked off the catwalk.
You might be biased.
I am so excited to be having this conversation with you, babe. We were talking about it the other day because obviously, as you know, I've just come back off this whirlwind trip, where I was speaking at different events, got to minister and spend time with people individually, got to speak at schools, and of course came back home, and I feel like I crash landed back into reality, and it was such a jolt to my system. I actually found myself spiraling mentally, and felt like I had been completely thrown off my perch. And while we were chatting about this the other day, I realized, wow, I'm not the only one that battles with this. So what I would love is from the get-go for you, because aside from being an incredible mom and wife and daughter and sister, and of course, award-winning writer, director, and producer, and of course, the list goes on, I would love for you to just paint for us a picture of what life looks like for you on the daily, just to give people an indication as to what it's like for you in your life.
Sure. Well, it's a roller coaster, a beautiful, beautiful roller coaster that I would never change for the world. But often when we're in the flight of, I guess, what I call battle, when we're out in the mission field, which for us is the landscape of production, it's pretty full on because I'm out on set with with my awesome crew, and my beautiful husband, he juggles a huge amount of the home life when I'm away, and they often come with me when it's possible. But there are some times where there might be a week or two here or there where I'm out, just with the crew, and so in that season it's always a challenge, physically, emotionally, spiritually, but and then in the downtime when it's just pre-production or post-production, I'm so blessed that I get to work from home now. So
great. I
think with one of the silver linings of the pandemic was that we found out that we didn't actually have to have an office space or a studio apartment or anything where we had to edit in person. We can actually do it all online. So we've moved to the countryside, and my crew still, majority of them are still in Melbourne, and we work every day online together, and it's been a very blissful season with that transition.
I think that's actually been one of the advantages, if we're honest, about COVID and the lockdowns that we faced, particularly in Melbourne, is that it forced people in a way to really evaluate what's important and what do we need in business and in our day-to-day life to be able to flourish and do things better in this season in front, right? So the fact that you're not now necessarily hiring workspaces and you're able to work from home, the fact that you've now made this decision to move from the city to the country as well, surely that's improved life for you in this fast lane and this juggle that you find yourself in.
Oh, absolutely, Nalini. It's And I think it's also a season of rest, which is quite funny because that's what we're talking about here today. And I think it comes with maturity and age as well. I feel like this year I turned 40, and I think for any woman, 40 is a big year, and it's an important year. And there seems like there's this dynamic shift within us. And I've spoken to many women, including yourself, about it. And it's like you kind of... all the things that used to weigh you down or bother you kind of fall away, and it's been a real transition season for me in that space. And the previous 3 years prior to that was a real journey and struggle because I'd lost my mum. We had multiple productions going on, some of them very intense, and family stuff going on. There was just so much, and this has just been such a healing season. So it's the drug, the juggle is still real, but it's a beautiful season to be in.
You mentioned the last 3 years, and that actually segues perfectly into one of the questions that I had pre-planned for you. How has the abrupt end of high-paced momentum impacted you in the past? So that come down, your show is finished. You're no longer on the road. You're back home. Kids have gone to school. How has that impacted you previously? We know that you're doing things differently now, and we're gonna delve deeper into that as we talk. But how has it impacted you in the past?
It's tough. I mean, and I still find it tough. I mean, you go from this high in life, and probably the greatest high I've experienced recently is my beautiful, fourth child, Lily Grace, like welcoming her into the world. And I think all the births have been absolutely amazing, but this one in particular was just so supernatural and such a high and such a grace. Her middle name is Grace, but coming from that high, and it's the same with a mega production or a ministry, being out in the field, you experience the euphoria and the greatest pinnacle of some of life's journey, and then you come back down and you hit that place of, okay, what now? And at times I've really struggled with it. It's like you go from this mega high, the mountaintop, down into the valley, and it's where, the valley sometimes is very lonely. It's cold, it's wet. You're isolated, and I think that's where the enemy of our soul starts to kind of come in and starts to torment us, because we realize, oh, hang on a minute, I can't live on the mountaintop forever. I've got to come back down. But the beauty in that is it's where the green things grow in the valley. They grow there when we're down there. And so It's, I guess, understanding that it's just a season, but also being content in that season. But in the past, I've certainly struggled mentally and spiritually and physically.
Yes, me too. And I know for me, and your struggle could be different. So I'd love to hear from you what your struggle has been in the past. But for me, it's been on this whole issue of rest versus idleness. And I think for me, because one of the questions I was going to ask you is, why do you think you've wrestled with it in the past? And I think for me, it's partly to do with my upbringing. You know, my parents are go-getters. They were always up and about. And my dad was a church pastor, and, you know, mum was alongside him in ministry. And so grew up with them constantly injecting into the lives of other people. And when they weren't, you know, it might be family time, curled up on the sofa in the evening. But aside from that, they were on the go. And so even as a young child growing up, if I was, you know, sitting on the sofa at an odd time during the week, you know, the question would be asked, well, why aren't you doing your homework? Or what are you up to? What's coming next? You know, and I love that about them because they're forward focused. But I think what that did for me was it resulted in me not being able to give myself the space to rest when my body needed rest, because I always identified me stopping with me being idle. And so I know I had this conversation with you last week because you so kindly checked in with me after we've been back, and I just opened up about that. And I was just like, I'm really struggling because I've come back and now I'm like, geez, who am I? What am I even doing? What am I waking up for? What is my purpose? I've completely lost sight of like my whole identity in the space of like just a few days of being off the treadmill. And that's dangerous, right? Like, that's super dangerous place to be. So what's been your trigger, do you think, in the past for you struggling with that come down off the back of really fast-paced momentum?
I think there's probably three things that I've been able to identify, and ironically you touched upon two of them just now. I grew up in a home where I had a mother and father who were both school teachers for 40 years. They coached basketball and netball. They, you know, did beautiful things in the community, and they were the most incredible parents, but they were non-stop. And so our life was non-stop. You know, we'd sport six nights of the week. We'd have school, we'd have, you know, homework, everything. It was just consistent. And even my father now, who's such a hardworking man, he's 71 years old, and he retired for a week and couldn't handle it and went back to, he's now working with the council and just with a bunch of blokes planting and trees and watering. 5 days a week, he's still working. And on the weekends, he's out on the farm. Just, it's nonstop always. And that's what was modeled to me. And so as an artist and living the life that we live, and I think you don't have to be an artist, you can be somebody that has a different type of schedule. I spent a long time trying to paint my parents' my childhood and my upbringing over the top of my life, and that foundation was so different. It was such a different structure, but I was able to identify that my husband and I will never live that life because we can't possibly run at the fast pace we do when a production's on or when we're in ministry. You know, he's doing a lot of youth work with his music, and you cannot possibly run that fast forever without a rest.
No.
And so you have to have that downtime, and it's been a really big struggle for me to not, you know, to break those, I guess, Australian ideals of the man is the worker and the woman stays at home, and find that balance between that in our marriage, and we've managed to do it after many years, and it's a beautiful dance. It's such a beautiful dance now, but for a long time that was a struggle. So that was one for me of not being able to rest because of what was modeled to me.
Yeah.
And you know, they would used to go away on school holidays for 3 weeks in the caravan, and that was their rest time. But because of our schedule, you know, it's just different. You can't compare lifestyles and upbringings. And so that's one thing I was able to identify. Another thing that you touched upon was identity. And I think that's probably the greatest thing that I've really worked on. Who am I when I'm not busy? And who am I when I'm not striving and I'm not succeeding and I'm not running the show? Like, am I strong when I'm sitting at home just reading a book with my children? Am I a strong woman, and am I capable when I'm just sitting there listening to my husband who may have something on his heart and want to share? Yes, that's when I'm my strongest. That's when I'm my most powerful, because without them, what's
exactly
what's the rest of it is really worth nothing. So that was something. Who am I? I asked myself quite frequently, who am I when I'm not doing, when I'm not striving, and for a Christian, if I know that there's an audience out there that may resonate with this, I am everything God created me to be.
Yeah.
Not because of what I do, but because of who He is in me.
I love that, because a lot of people do define themselves by what they do.
Yes, absolutely. And what happens when you're sick, or when you are burnt out? I've experienced burnout many times. Are we any less of a person? Are we anything less? And so that was really important for me. That was the second thing. And now I have baby brain. You have to forgive me. What was the third? The third thing I've been able to identify. We might have to come back to, because right now it's left me.
Okay, we'll come back to that if it resonates, or if something triggers, just interrupts me. Okay, we'll bring that one back. We'll definitely, because we all want to hear number 3 now. So
yes.
I guess I have a question for you, which is a little off topic, but still obviously very much in context. Have you ever questioned yourself on that of idleness? And has that ever been a challenge for you? Let me stop there and just wait for you to respond on that one. Or let me rephrase it. What does idleness mean to you?
Yeah. I think rest has like you said at the beginning, rest is very different to idleness. And I think often we get them confused. And idleness to me is when you're still and you're stagnant and nothing's moving,
Yes,
nothing's
I like
moving.
That. Yeah.
Whereas rest, sometimes we achieve far more in the rest than we do in the strive. And that's because our body, our soul, our mind, our families, everyone we love around us, but most importantly us, we need that downtime to rejuvenate. We need we need time to reconnect with our Creator, reconnect with the ones who are closest to us, reconnect with ourselves to be able to create the space to offer others.
Yeah.
And I think often we confuse that rest with the idleness, and idleness, I haven't quite wrapped my head around it, but I think in the past, very much so, I have attached idleness to laziness.
Yes.
And rest is not being lazy. Rest is proactive.
Exactly. I think actually, while we're talking about this, I am reminded also, we've touched on, the changes and the shifts that took place as a result of COVID that have actually been really beneficial to people. But at the same time, I think the effects of lockdown and isolation have also created idleness in some people, because they have become so acquainted with not doing anything.
Yes.
We're seeing it in the workforce, right? So recruitment has been a huge challenge. Finding skilled workers and laborers has been a huge challenge for us in our business. And I was chatting to my hairstylist the other day, and he's struggling to find hairdressers. Wow. And whilst we were chatting, he said, where have they all gone? And I said, wow, okay, that's a really interesting question, because where have all the skilled laborers gone? And whilst COVID for some people has resulted in people moving out of the cities and completely reshaping their lives to suit, maybe a little bit more of a slower pace, as opposed to being on that fast lane that I think a lot of people were on pre-COVID. has it potentially created an idleness in people where they're making their decisions because they just don't want to get up and go anymore, and they'd much rather wake up from day to day just living the slob life, the home life, not actively working, not actively being diligent and doing? Has it potentially created an idleness in us?
Yeah, I have seen it. Even, we have a production company and we've got some amazing workers. They're all amazing. They're all amazing. And we've spoken to many people within the industry and we've seen it ourselves that there are people out there that have become very, complacent and very comfortable in that home life, which is totally fine for a season.
Yes.
But I think the pendulum, I often talk about this pendulum. So we've got the center where we need to sit we need to come back to that middle space, that place of rest, the place of restoration and where creativity starts to happen in our minds. But then the pendulum can swing so far either way that we get lost in it. And it can either swing so far this way that we become burnt out because we're not coming back to that place in the center where we're grounded and where we're really forward thinking about every aspect of our life. We're multifaceted as humans, thinking about in that middle space. And then often the pendulum can swing so far the opposite direction that we become so complacent in the idleness and we forget that we were designed with a purpose.
Yes.
And I think that was my third point, purpose.
Bring it.
So I know you believe this as well, but we believe that every human being on the planet was born with a divine purpose, that there's a plan for our life, and that if we don't fulfill that purpose within our own life, no one else is going to.
Absolutely.
Others may be able to sing, but they don't sing the way Nalini does. Yeah. Others may be able to create film, but they're not going to create the way I do.
Yeah.
Others can raise your children, but they're not going to raise your children the way you do. So that we're part of this incredible puzzle in this world, and we're selected to be born in this era. We weren't born back in the 1940s or, God forbid, in the future. I'm praying for our future children. But we were born right now. And so there's a purpose for us to be here. We have the skill set, the mindset, the capability, the way we look, the skin color, our hair color, our eyes. No one else has our thumbprint. There's a purpose for us being here and right now. And what happens if we don't fulfill that purpose? So I think when we sit in that place of idleness and we sit in the place of it's okay to be we don't want to be complacent in that. And so always remembering that I have a purpose, and some of my purpose is to rest, and some of it is to strive and to push, and working out what part of that purpose we're sitting in,
finding that balance. Yes, I agree. So if we have someone listening today who feels really challenged right now because they have slumped into a state of idleness, just haven't got the energy, just feeling extremely lethargic, just haven't got the wherewithal to get up again for whatever reason. It could be after a traumatic event, or it could be just after COVID, just haven't really gotten life back together post-COVID. What do you want to say to that person? Like, what advice can you bring to somebody who has identified in their life right now that, wow, this is not rest. This is just going on and on and on. This is idleness now, and something's got to shift. Yeah.
It's kind of I've got a bit of a two-edged sword there.
Go for it.
There's a part of me, and it probably comes from my beautiful father, who was the most amazing father, but he had tough love. And there was a period, many parts of my childhood where he would kick me up the butt if I was not on point. And I appreciate that so much, because tough love is required. So part of me would like to say, if I was to mentor somebody, or if somebody asked me the question you just asked, it's time. It's time for you to pick up your sword and start living your life, because you are valuable and society needs you, and
Yes.
you need to get up and you need to start contributing, because the world needs really good people to do really good work. The other part of me, the nurturing part of me, which probably comes from my beautiful mother, my dad was nurturing too, but you know, they did have this beautiful balance. The nurturing part of me was, are you okay? And are we idle because there's things in our life that we need to work out and that you need to heal? And if there are those parts in you, if there's a reason why you're idle for this long, get the help you need so you can pick up that sword. But I think it's our responsibility as leaders, as mothers, as mentors, to differentiate between the two. Is this person idle because they are being lazy and they've forgotten that they have value and they've forgotten that they've got purpose and they just need a swift kick up the butt? Or are they actually needing some deep healing to be able to get back up and get back out there? So
yes, and I think that's a very important statement, not just for our listeners today, but for parents of teenagers even. You know, because I know, and I speak for experience myself, is there always comes a time in our teenage children's lives where, as far as we're concerned, as the parents, Tommy's just being idle. He's just being lazy. You know, he's got no get up and go, right? And it's very important as parents that we're able to discern and differentiate between, like you said, is he or she being idle for idle's sake? Or is there something deeper going on? Like you said, that needs to be addressed, that needs to be confronted. And I love what you shared about that beautiful balance between your mum and dad, you know, where you'd get the kick up the backside when you needed it, but you also had that nurturing, you know, maternal love and affection and compassion from mum, which is so needed in this day. So that's just a quick little add-on there for parents listening, I think. Yes, give your kids the kick up the backside if they need it, but at the same time, show empathy and compassion and be open to the possibility that maybe there is something deeper going on, and it's a cry for help.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think with children and definitely adults as well, when we remind people that they have a responsibility, often people will rise to the occasion. So reminding listeners and reminding our children and our loved ones, even our parents or our best friends or whoever it is that we're talking to, reminding people that they have that purpose and that there is, with that purpose, there is a responsibility. You have to contribute to this world. You have to be a part of creating change, and there's so much heartache out there, and there's so many amazing people, but often the amazing people aren't doing much about the heartache, and so there is a responsibility, which I think is a part of that third item that I was talking about. Responsibility, purpose comes with responsibility.
Yes,
and so the swift kick up the butt to be responsible and to use the gifts you've been given, what's in your hand.
Yes.
And there is a time to lay it down and for it to gain power before you pick it back up, like Moses did with his staff. But there's also a time where you've just got to know that it's go time. So the swift kick up the butt can kick you into that responsibility, but also responsibility can pull people out of the slumber.
Yes.
Reminding people you are responsible for your life and you are worth something. Absolutely. And you are important and the world needs you. So let's go.
And we have one go at it. One go. You know, it's not like we can come back.
Yes, exactly.
Exactly. I'm just going to put coach hat on for a moment, because while preparing for today and as we bring this this interview to a close, and before I hand over to you, I just want to give you guys, whoever's listening, my top 5 tips when it comes to rest. Okay,
love it.
And then I'll hand over to Danielle. So first and foremost, remember that when you're tired, you're actually in a vulnerable state. All right. You'll see this on the motorway when you're driving. There'll be signs advertising for you to pull off at the upcoming lay-by to rest, right? If you're tired, because tiredness can sometimes show up symptomatically, whereby your vision and judgment is impaired. You have slow reflexes and responses, sometimes a little moody and irritable, okay? So it's very important to remember that when you're tired, you're vulnerable. So care and compassion for one's self is so important. And number 2, because of the impact of tiredness, it's not the time to be making life-altering decisions. And boy, don't we know that, Danielle.
Absolutely.
Number 3, you cannot rush rest. Give yourself the time that you need. I actually wrote a blog, Where to Begin with Self-Care, and we'll make sure we have the link to that in the description of today's podcast. And my next tip, and this is the 4th, my dad always used to say, don't rest from your work, work from your rest. And it's so beautiful. I love that thought because there is this synergy between rest and work. And if we can, as we get older and a little bit more experienced and acquainted with this, try and find that rhythm of rest and work, rest and work. What that does is our work is all the more better, where we're able to give our optimum, right, to our purpose, rather than push, and then we're working from a state of exhaustion. Isn't that insane? So he says, don't rest from your work, work from your rest. And lastly, determine for yourself in your own life, is this rest or is this idleness? And Danielle actually said that earlier. Is this rest or is this idleness? Now, before I hand over to Danielle for her closing thoughts, I just want to leave you with this. Rest allows you to recover and recalibrate so that you can get back up and continue with the work at hand, whilst idleness has nothing to show for itself. Danielle, any closing thoughts, sweetheart?
Oh, I love that. I love that, Nalini. Thank you. I'm going to re-listen to that and write some notes. That was beautiful. Closing thoughts. Oh, I think just, the importance of rest and how much growth can take place in that season of rest. Yes. Reflection, journaling, making sure that you're really, really surrounded by people who are going to nurture you, and removing all comparison. I think we're in a society where, with social media and those around us, you can often compare your life to other people, and it's something that the last few years I've really, really just cut out of my life, and I'm able to now go on social media and not even blink at or compare myself to others, but actually really cheer people on and really be such a cheerleader for anybody around me, because I'm so content in my own purpose and what I'm doing.
I love that.
And so just removing all comparison in life and surrounding yourself with people who are not going to compete with you, but they're going to uplift you. And that's why I adore you, Nalini, and some of my other really close friends and mentors and church folk, they cheer you on, and there's no comparison, there's no competition, there's no toxicity, and I think just removing all of those toxic things out of your life, toxic people, and surrounding yourself with people who are just going to really champion you on in life is such an important tool in your rest. People that are going to say, they're going to pull you up out of the slumber, they're going to pull you up out of the idleness, but they're also going to encourage you to rest. And yourself and a few other of my very close friends will often say, are you resting, in this season? Because I've just had a baby. Yes. And have I been, 100% spot on with my rest in this season? No, I've still been delivering, a couple of documentaries we had to finish off, and we've got premieres coming up for those. And there is work to be done, but I've been able to delegate a lot more and succeed in that rest a lot better than I have in the past, because of beautiful friends like yourself myself and my mentors and people who really keep me accountable to the rest and to the call upon my life. So yeah, probably if there was one thing I wanted to leave the audience with is surround yourself with people who genuinely love you, just absolutely love you, and want nothing from you other than love in return.
I love that because those people will not feed into idleness, but they will look out for you when rest is needed.
Yes.
You know, and that's so, so important. I love that, Danielle. Thank you so, so much for coming on Under the Rug and just sharing your insight with us. You are such a blessing, and I know this is going to impact so many people's lives. I know I'm going to re-listen to this for myself.
Likewise.
How can people get hold of you? If there's someone listening today that just wants to follow your journey and just see what you're up to and learn more about you, how's the best way for them to do that?
Either Instagram or Facebook. I'm Danielle McAlpine Johnson on both, or there's cheekymacproductions.com. They can contact us through there.
Fabulous.
But yeah, I would love to connect with anybody, or if anybody ever needs prayer or, support, I'm always here. But I just want to thank you, my beautiful friend. I think I am in absolute awe of your journey recently and always. But yeah, this is the only the beginning for you. I can see it, and I'm just cheering you on, and I love you. And thank you for sharing my voice with your listeners.
Thank you so much. Wow. I mean, how do I close this now? That was absolutely incredible. I hope you are encouraged and inspired, challenged. Maybe you got a bit of a smack up the whatsits today. That's not necessarily a bad thing, okay? Listen, if you want to reach out, flick me an email, info@nalinitranquim.com. Connect with Danielle and I online on social media. We'll have all the links in the description field of today's podcast. Thank you for listening in. I love you. I will talk to you soon.
To learn more about Nalini's online coaching programs, visit nalinitranquim.com/store. Thank you for listening to the Under the Rug podcast with Nalini Tranquim.